He's always been a racist, a bigot, a xenophobic, and Islamophobic. We know that he called African nations a shithole in his first administration. We know that when he came down that escalator, he said he was going to stop Muslim immigration into this country. And so it is not surprising that he is going after black immigrants in this country. And it's certainly not surprising that he's choosing a black immigrant community that is also Muslim. But what I would like to say is that most of us are citizens. On our passport, it says we are nationals of this country. We love that Minnesota has welcomed us. Many of us have not been settled in Minnesota. We chose it as a home because the Minnesota people and the state is beautiful and very welcoming. And we are going to be here regardless of what the president has to say.
Walz he should be ashamed. That beautiful land, that beautiful state, it's a hellhole right now. And the Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country. And all they do is complain, complain, complain. You have her. She's always talking about the Constitution provides me with, go back to your own country and figure out your Constitution. All she does is complain about this country. Without this country, she would not be in very good shape. She probably wouldn't be alive right now. So Somalia is considered by many to be the worst country on earth. I don't know. I haven't been there. I won't be there anytime soon, I hope. But what Somalia, what the Somalian people have done to Minnesota is not even believable. It's not even believable. And a lot of it starts with the government. The nation, look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a Representative Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. It's a fraud. She tries to deny it now, but you can't really deny it because, you know, it just happened. She shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, and I'm sure people are looking at that. And she should be thrown the hell out of our country. And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota, okay? Minnesota, you have an incompetent governor. You have a crooked governor. He's crooked as hell, but he's incompetent.
Let's talk about Tim Walz, who is, of course, at the center of this massive fraud scandal because under his watch in Minnesota, hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars have reportedly been going to Somalia. Now, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has launched a federal investigation into claims that Minnesota tax dollars were siphoned to the terrorist group Al-Shabaab under the Biden administration and Governor Tim Walz. An allegation, he said, demands urgent scrutiny. Now, this fraud scandal, Army, has raised concerns around what else is going on in Minnesota under Tim Walz. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem revealed today that half of all visa holders in Minnesota submitted fraudulent applications. She said, "You told me to look into Minnesota and their fraud on visa and their programs. 50% of them are fraudulent, which means that wacko Governor Tim Walz either is an idiot or he did it on purpose, and I think that he's both." So, Army, I mean, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think that is both. And of course, look, just because you had a visa approved, there's no law that says you have to be in this country. And if certainly you were trying to, you fraudulently try to acquire a visa, you can and probably should be shipped out of this country. This is an incredible, really a truly incredible story that's barely being covered by the mainstream media. And when it is, it's being covered all wrong. I'll talk about that in a second. But like, again, you're talking about $1 billion was stolen through fraud from the American people. And just in terms of context, right? What $1 billion here and $1 billion there, all of a sudden we're talking about real money. $1 billion is more than 4 times what Minneapolis, the biggest city in Minnesota, spends on their entire law enforcement budget, okay?
Wow.
And that, that money was spent, as they said, on with luxury cars and real estate in Turkey and Nigeria. And by the way, I looked it up. Your real estate dollars go very far in Nigeria. I can only imagine what kind of palaces, what kind of villas they're paying with that. And oh yeah, of course, like you said, it's going to terrorist organizations like Al-Shabaab. What I find so curious is that they stole $1 billion, but only gave a few million to Al-Shabaab. Like that's less than 1% of what they stole. I mean, come on, guys. If you really feel strongly about it, that's really selfish to keep most of the money for yourself. Okay, I'm just saying. But Walz is incredible, right? So first of all, he knew about this for years. This is not brand new. He's known this for years, but has been afraid because he didn't want to have smack of racism, right? And some kind of anti-Somalian bent in Minnesota, because they're a really huge part of the Democratic Party in Minnesota. And there's an American Somali legislator who said the quiet part out loud. He said, look, the reason why this is ignored is because we are so powerful in the Democratic Party. And that there was an X account that we're not exactly 100% sure whether or not it was real or not, but there was an X account that purported to represent 500 people from Human Services in Minnesota who said they were threatened when they brought up this issue to Walz and his people. So yeah, that is an incredible indictment of Walz. But unbelievably, he was on Meet the Press, and they spent more time on Meet the Press talking about how President Trump called him a retard than they spent on this actual serious issue, the scandal of scandals in Minnesota. They spent more time talking about that stupid issue than this issue. And he took no responsibility for what went on. In fact, he went on the offense, and the host of Meet the Press had no follow-up questions, no pushback, no nothing. It was unbelievable. Look, there is an issue with the Somali community. Okay, I went there. I've been there actually a couple times interviewing the Somali community. There's an issue with assimilation. You just can't get away around it, okay? Where I asked them whether or not they should live under American law, Sharia law. They wanted to live in Sharia law. They felt that Somalia was a better place for them if they're living here. And this is not really, again, an anti-Africa issue. Nigerian immigrants are among the most successful immigrants in our country, economically, education. It's not about that. Somalis just are not assimilating as other cultures are, and we have to look into that.
And you made the point that this is barely being covered on the mainstream media. Of course, New York Times reported on it, but looking at the coverage, ABC News Tonight didn't touch it. NBC's Nightly News, CBS Evening News also has not mentioned Tim Walz by name in the past week, Army, while all of this is going on and this is being revealed. This is according to reports out of Fox News. And they also didn't use the terms Somali or Somalian. They were not used in any of the 3 newscasts in the past week. And it's a huge part of this scandal, as you say. Look, let's listen to Caroline Levitt on Tim Walz.
About how Somali immigrants in Minnesota have been ripping off American taxpayers. In fact, 86 people have been charged in a rampant and widespread fraud scheme spanning multiple programs in Minnesota. Of those 86, 78 of those people are Somali, 91% of them charged. So far, 59 of those people have been convicted for their roles in fraud plots that have stolen $1 billion from taxpayers. In one scheme, and this is egregious, a nonprofit and its affiliates with these Somali migrants claim to have fed tens of thousands of American children during the pandemic. They were reimbursed for those meals by taxpayers. However, federal prosecutors found that almost all of those meals were never even delivered to hungry children. In fact, those organizations' leaders spent the money on houses, luxury cars, and real estate in Turkey and Kenya.
I mean, this scandal is extraordinary, Army. Will Tim Walz be able to survive this? Surely he should be resigning.
Well, he's coming up for election, and the problem is Minnesota is a pretty blue state. I mean, Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, is a full-on crazy person. He was giving a press conference, just broke into Somali like randomly. So will he survive? I mean, I think he might. I think he will survive because he's got allies in the Democratic Party and obviously allies in the media. If the media's not covering this, this is not going to break out and pick up enough steam for him to lose power. So yeah, I think he's going to survive. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
And he could have been the vice president. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Can you imagine that?
God.
I know.